Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Diabesity Planet. Today, I'm going to be talking about a very important topic, and a topic that's on everyone's mind when it comes to fasting, and that is how do we deal with hunger and dealing with that obstacle. So today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the why we actually get hungry, and then the next topic I'm going to be talking about how we can master that hunger. So, before I get into that, I'm going to talk a little bit about how the fasting's been going. So, today's been day 20. So, I've got about 10 days left. And I'm hoping my goal by the end of the 10 days is to reach my goal of 30 pounds weight loss in 30 days. So far, I'm at about 193 pounds today. So, actually, a little bit more than the last time. But partly it's also because two things. One is I've had a pretty busy weekend as far as birthdays and anniversaries are concerned. I've attended two birthdays and one anniversary just this last weekend. So I try to control as much as possible, but to some degree it was a little bit out of my control. So I've cut down to about 24 to 48 hours of fasting. And so that's that, and also on top of that, I've also changed my goal a little bit because in the next week or so, I'm going to be trying out for a pretty vigorous physical training program that I need to meet a certain requirement for. So I've started to hit the gym a little bit more and do more weights and things like that. So I have had to change my diet a little bit and consume some protein, because it's no longer strictly a weight loss for me at this point. But I'm going to try to continue and reach my goal of at least 30 pounds in 30 days. So we'll see how things go in the next 10 days. I'm going to have to lose about 15 pounds. So that's that. And then in general, again, I feel great. The fastings, generally, the intermittent fasting is much easier than continuous fasting, so really no complaints. I feel full of energy, and I just came back from about a 2-hour workout at the gym, with a combination of cardio and weights. So it's nice to be able to be a little bit balanced from that perspective. So let's get into the topic at hand for today. So why do we get hungry? This is a huge topic, and it's something that I've definitely struggled with, and many people who are trying to achieve weight loss struggle with, and that's how to get away from hunger. Because hunger is such a powerful feeling, and it drives all of us at least more than once a day to gravitate towards food. And it's something that is a huge barrier for people when thinking about fasting, and rightfully so, because it's such a powerful emotion. And usually the thoughts that people get are things like, how you're gonna go and not eat for more than 4 hours, let alone 24 or 48 hours or 7 days, let's say. How is that even possible? Am I gonna die if I do that? And the answer is a resounding no. You're not going to die if you fast. And again, remember that we're talking in the context of somebody with obesity and diabetes, so they've got tons and tons of sugar and energy stored on board. So there's really no concerns from that perspective. And but today I'm going to talk a little bit about hunger itself. And many people, one of the other things that comes up a lot with regards to hunger is a lot of people say that if you fast, what you're doing is you're going to build up a lot of hunger, so that once you stop fasting, it's going to force you to go and binge eat like crazy, and you're going to gain all the weight back, and even some more. And actually, after reading, again, a shameless plug for Dr. Jason Fung's book, The Complete Guide to Fasting, Chapter 9 actually has a very interesting chapter just to address hunger itself, and that's on page 170, I believe, or 167. And Some of the analogies he draws are quite inspiring and really help put it into context for me and help me be able to curb my hunger. Because really, and I feel like I'm like Morpheus from the Matrix sharing this, but hunger is strictly a conditioned thing. It's not, contrary to what we're trained to believe, it's not, our stomach or hunger is not triggered because we need to eat food. It's triggered based on cultural cues and habits that we've developed over time. And if you think about it, and even some of my own friends who have PhDs in nutrition will tell you that if you skip meals and skip breakfast, you have to eat breakfast, you have to eat snack frequently through the day, you have to eat, and if you don't, then you're going to slow your metabolism down, you're going to have hunger cravings, and it's going to totally make you gain weight, and it's going to be totally bad, detrimental to your health. And interestingly, and this one friend, I swear I love him to death, and he's probably gonna watch this video. But interestingly, when you find all the research that who's funding his research, it's the food industry. And the reason I brought that up is because it's really the food industry that conditions us to constantly want to eat, even though we don't really need to eat. So a great example, actually, that Dr. Fung talks about in his book, which I found really intriguing, is when you wake up in the morning, typically you don't feel hungry, and even though you haven't eaten for 12 to 14 hours since you've been sleeping, right? So if hunger was strictly something that would appear anytime you haven't eaten for a certain amount of time, if it's strictly that, then you should probably feel most hungriest in the morning when you wake up. And really, unless you've been totally conditioned and have that habit, usually you don't feel hungry. You feel least hungry in the morning. And also part of that is it's a hormonal thing. So also there's something called the dawn effect, where your body knows that you're waking up and your liver gives a sudden spurt of energy because it knows that you're going to be waking up. And so you don't really need to eat breakfast to have energy in the morning. But it's been completely manufactured by all of the by the entire food and breakfast industry. Every time you turn on the TV, you see tons and tons of ads for cereals and pancakes and all the sugary, bad stuff. Dempster's whole wheat and Dempster's bread and this and as much carby stuff as you can think of is anti-Jemima and everything. It's totally pushed and advertised like crazy. And on top of that, we're told by traditional nutritional advice that you can't skip breakfast. It's the most important meal of the day, etc., etc., etc. Even though we need that energy probably the least from the entire day. And conversely, dinner time, for example, you feel much more hungry even though you just had lunch a couple of hours prior to that. So it's not really a matter of you needing to eat. It's more a matter of habit, conditioning, and hormones. So that's really why we get hungry. And if you think about it, a great experiment that we've all studied, if you've taken any basic psychology 101, is the Pavlov experiments, and Dr. Fung talks about this as well. So Pavlov was a Russian scientist who was doing experiments on dogs, and noticed that whenever he would come to feed the dogs, they'd bring people in lab coats would bring food, and pretty soon they started to notice that the dogs would start to salivate and prepare and sort of get hungry anytime they would see people with lab coats, even though there was no food. And then he went on to use a bell sound, and used to associate it with food. And then he noticed that the dogs would start salivating even with the sound of a bell because they were conditioned to associate that with food. And if you look at the food industry nowadays, and for example, if you go in the restaurant, the reason that they spend so much time trying to an effort to try and make your food look appetizing and smell good when you go in is because eating and hunger starts from your senses that are other than your tongue. And even your sense of smell and all of those things start to make you want to salivate, and it's just simply the expectation of food that would make you hungry. So so the key thing here is expectation. And again, as I mentioned, we're totally programmed to think that we always need to eat food, which is totally false. Number one, and secondly, we're totally conditioned to associate food with almost every part of our life. When we go to the movies, we automatically think popcorn and candy and drinks, and I'm totally guilty of that myself. If you go to any kind of sports arena or anything, you're thinking of it's associated with food. Basically, anything you do outside is associated with food. So we're totally conditioned to always want to eat food, whether it's through the food industry, whether it's unfortunately non-effective traditional dietary guidelines, whether it's just sort of our habits, commercials, etc., etc. So that's really why we get hungry. There's no real biological basis for having to eat and need food. As I mentioned in previous videos, you don't really need to eat so frequently to stay alive or to even be healthy. And in fact, fasting and getting rid of the onboard toxins that are in the form of fat and stored sugar is so healthy for you, and has numerous health benefits that the science and the literature is now showing. And so it's just a matter of shifting our frame, shifting the way that we think about hunger. And to be quite honest, one of the best things that's happened since starting this fasting regime is that I've been able to gain a sense of control over my hunger. So basically, prior to starting fasting, my hunger controlled my entire life. Anytime my stomach would start to grumble, I would start to think, "Oh my God, what am I going to eat? What am I going to eat?" I would think, and you spend so much of my day perseverating, thinking about it, thinking about what I was craving, what food I would think would be delicious that day, where to find that food, where to eat, and all these kind of things. And so I honestly felt like I was a slave to my hunger. I felt I needed to eat because that was a traditional nutritional advice I was always given, and I felt like I had to eat to keep my metabolism going, even though I was just poisoning my body. And so being able to fast completely flips the hierarchy of power from your hunger controlling you to you controlling your hunger. And if you really think about how much, when I thought about how much time I spent on my hunger, if you think about the time you spend thinking about food, the time you spend acquiring food, so whether it's driving to get groceries or driving to a restaurant, the time it takes to eat the food, the time it takes to clean after yourself, and you add all of these together 3 times a day, it takes up so much of your time, your mental effort, and it's so bad for you. It's so bad for you, to be constantly in that state. Now, that's not to say that it's completely good to have a balanced, healthy, a healthy diet when you do eat, and it's not, and you should eat. But remember that you need to tailor your food and your eating towards your health goals, and you need to do it in a fashion where you're sort of fasting and feasting, so to speak, and everything is done in that balance. So today we talked about why we get hungry, and in the next episode I'm going to be talking about some tips and some steps that we can take that can help us gain mastery over our hunger, and basically gain mastery over our lives, essentially, and over our weight and everything related to that. So thanks again for watching. Thank you everyone for subscribing. Thank you for your comments. Really inspired by some of my other colleagues and friends and family who's also taken up this personal journey and this cause to take control of their lives, take control of their health, and to undergo this journey. And again, I want to really recommend anybody who's seriously interested in this topic to pick up and read this book, The Complete Guide to Fasting by Dr. Jason Fung, whose book has completely opened my eyes to this, and putting this into practice has completely changed my life, and I hope that it'll change your life as well. Please continue to keep the feedback and comments coming. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me, and if you find that these videos are helpful to you, please do share the wealth. Sharing is caring. Please share it with your friends and family. I do appreciate it, and I definitely encourage it. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you back for the next episode of Diabesity Planet. Dr. Furmli out.